My name is Sandy Lacey, and I'm 27. When I was a kid, love in our house was a scoreboard with a burned out bulb where my name should have been. Some families say, "We're proud of you." Mine said, "Why can't you be more like Emily?" She was the bright one. Gymnastics ribbons and theater posters curling on the edges, prom queen photos printed on glossy paper. If Emily sneezed, someone filmed the echo. If I bled, Mom said I was dramatic. I wasn't the artist. I was the kid with wire cutters and a flathead screwdriver. I made things that worked. No one clapped for works. At 15, I stopped handing out announcements of my small miracles. The last one I tried was an A+ in a programming class. I slid the certificate across the dinner table. Mom was scrolling, Dad twirling pasta. "That's good," she said, not looking up. "Emily's got nationals." I took that A+, folded it twice, filed it in a drawer with my old school IDs. That was the night I learned how to be useful quietly. By 17, usefulness paid. I fixed laptops for classmates in exchange for sandwiches, installed a neighborhood router in someone's garage, walked home with $300, and the dizzying thought that appreciation could be counted. I did not ask my parents for help because the one time I tried, sophomore year, my laptop bricked. Dad said, "We just bought Emily a MacBook. You always figure it out." He said it like praise. I heard it like a sentence. I figured it out. College came and went on fumes, scholarships, thrift stores, secondhand GPUs. I freelanced at night. Bug patches for impossible deadlines, disaster projects with scope creep yawning like a cracked jaw. It stacked slowly, and when it stacked enough, I signed a lease on a 3-room office with a busted espresso machine, paint that still smelled like a first chance, and a door that mattered. Frosted glass, my name. Sandy Lacey, founder. I took a photo. Clean shot, my desk, the Craigslist chair. I sanded and stained myself. The caption said, "6 years in the making." My hands shook when I hit post. I didn't need a parade. I wanted proof I hadn't imagined my own life. An hour passed, then 2. A lone comment from my mother. "Nice," lowercase nice, like I'd posted toast. I laughed, a little, the tired kind. Then I put the phone face down and opened my terminal. Routes to fix, invoices to send, the oxygen of focus. But the next day I saw something on Mom's Facebook that stole the air anyway. A dinner table with candles, a congratulations banner, champagne flutes winking. "So proud of our girl hitting 500 followers. Hashtag influencer in the family." And in the center, Emily, Pusatus like the universe had issued her a crown for breathing on camera. They threw a party for 500. I opened a company and got lowercase toast. I told myself not to count. Counting makes you bitter. Counting saves your life. Either way, I kept moving. I learned to make my hands steady. I learned how silence isn't emptiness. It's the room where you build. It was a Friday when the call came. "Hi, is this Sandy Lacey? This is Cheryl from Westbridge Lending. We're confirming the upcoming mortgage payment for 214 Grafton Lane. We noticed the last 2 have been made from your account. Just checking if you'll continue this month." The cursor on my screen blinked. So did I. "I'm sorry. What?" She slowed down, polite, like maybe English had become my second language mid-sentence. "We show you as a regular contributor for the past 26 months. Regular contributor." I hit mute and stared at the window. My name ghosted in the glass, and did the math I already knew how to do. It started as a mercy. A year and some ago, no, more, the first call from Dad had that wet, urgent tone people use when they're about to say they're fine. "1 payment," he promised. "We're in a rough patch." I just signed a big client. I said yes. I said, "Pay me back when you can." They didn't. Month 2 became month 3, became a ritual no one named. The money left like breath you didn't know you were holding until you passed out. I unmuted. "Cheryl, I was helping once, temporarily." A pause. "Our records show 26 months. When I hung up, I didn't cry. I've learned to save water. I just sat there while the office hummed. Printer in the hall, groaning, espresso machine clicking like a landmine under the counter, and I thought about every burrito I ate over a keyboard. Every winter, I worked under a blanket because heat was optional. Every time I had to figure it out while my family posted photos under fairy lights. They let me become a ghost owner of a house I didn't live in, for a life I was barely allowed to belong to. And when I finally carved my name into a door, they gave me lowercase nice and a party for a filter Emily used correctly. I stood up, walked to the glass. Sandy Lacey, founder. In the reflection, the woman looking back at me wasn't little anymore, wasn't waiting for a ribbon. She was the kind of quiet that flips breakers. That night, I opened a fresh spreadsheet. Blank cells, the cleanest kind of honesty. I pulled statements, Venmo screenshots, checks cashed in the 11th hour. Line by line, I typed dates, amounts, notations like tiny gravestones. $41,850, 776. I laughed. Not the happy kind. The oxygen-deprived kind you do to avoid throwing a chair through a window. A second tab, collateral damage. My credit ding from the temporary consolidation loan I co-signed at 23 because Dad said it was just paperwork, because family doesn't overthink. A third tab, emotional debt. A joke title, not a joke. Missed graduation dinner, Mom at Emily's brunch. No call when first client signed. Gave Emily my old laptop. Mom, she needs it more. It was a diary in cells. It was the sound a heart makes when it becomes a ledger. At midnight, my phone lit up with a message from Evan, my boyfriend, the one who knows how to ask questions without turning them into nets. You at the office? I typed back, yeah, just finishing something. He replied with a heart and eat something first, CEO. I didn't tell him about the number, not yet. I needed to see it alone. I closed the spreadsheet and stared at the door again. The frosted glass held my name steady even when I wasn't. In another life, I would have marched into my parents' kitchen and demanded a reckoning. In this one, I wanted something they couldn't twist into a family soap. I wanted math. Not a fight, a recalibration. I logged into the ComNet account. 2 years ago, their credit was too low to get internet, so I'd opened it, telling myself it wasn't really a big deal because Wi-Fi is small, right? Small like leaky pipes are small until the ceiling caves. The billing name glowed up at me in corporate blue. Click, suspend service, no warning. I didn't do it for the petty thrill. I did it because systems teach people what to expect. For 26 months, I'd taught them that my money was a utility. Unseen, automatic, due on the second. Teaching is a habit. So is unteaching. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later. Emily. Wi-Fi's dead. Dad says you set it up. Fix? There was a pink heart after fix, like I was a handyman with a crush on a problem. I screenshot her last story, new designer purse, caption, girl math, and sent it back with, girl math is this Wi-Fi. Then I put the phone face down again. I didn't feel rage. Rage is a bonfire. This was a pilot light. I opened one more tab in the spreadsheet and titled it, Extraction Plan. The first line read, cancel the polite little ghost that leaves on the second. I hovered over my banking app like a diver over a dark pool. Then I tapped, cancel transfer. The room stayed quiet. The glass kept my name. The espresso machine made that clicking noise again, like a metronome for boundaries. Outside, the city rumbled, uncaring. Inside, I felt the slightest shift, like the moment before a storm, when the air gets heavy and honest. I powered down, grabbed my coat, and as I stepped out, the door caught the light. Sandy Lacey, founder. It wasn't applause. It was better. It was proof. Tomorrow, the calls would start. The lender would call again. Emily would weaponize the group chat. My parents would practice their faces in the car mirror. Fine, let them. I'd already switched the only thing that mattered. Not the internet, the current. I used to think boundaries were built with words. Turns out they're built with silence. The kind that hums through your phone when people are finally forced to wonder why you're not picking up. By Saturday morning, my phone looked like it had caught a cold. 10 missed calls from Dad, 2 from Mom, and 1 text from Emily that just said, "Are you mad or something? LOL." No apology, no curiosity, just entitlement wrapped in emoji. I didn't answer any of them. I went to work instead. The office smelled like fresh paint and burnt espresso again. My version of incense. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and stared at the spreadsheet from last night. $41,850, 76 cents. Every cent proof that affection in my family had an invoice. When I was 23, Dad had called me one rainy Tuesday. I still remember standing under the flickering light in my tiny apartment above a tire shop. He said, "We just need your name on this loan for a few months. You won't even feel it." And I wanted to believe him, because believing was easier than saying no. I signed. 3 years later, my credit was still carrying that few months. Now, as I stared at the rows of transactions, I added a note in red. Year 1, co-signed consolidation loan. Credit drop, 71 points. I leaned back, let the hum of the computer fan fill the room. I wasn't angry, not yet, just aware, the sharp, surgical kind of awareness that comes before action. That afternoon, I drafted an email. Subject, mortgage payment clarification, 214 Grafton Lane. Hi, Cheryl. Following our recent conversation, I wanted to confirm that I will no longer be contributing to the mortgage associated with this property. Any payments made previously were voluntary, not contractual. Please remove my contact details from future correspondence. Thank you, Sandy Lacey. I didn't hit send. Not yet. I liked having it there, waiting. A loaded file in my drafts folder, humming like a quiet declaration of independence. Sunday morning, the silence ended. Sandy! Mom's voice blasted through my voicemail like she was announcing a fire drill. The Wi-Fi's down again. Emily's freaking out. She's got some influencer collab thing today. She didn't even breathe before the next sentence. Also, we noticed the mortgage didn't auto-draft. Can you check on that? Can you check on that? Not how are you? Not thank you for keeping our lights on for 2 years. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the phone, listening to her panic play out. They had no idea I was the one who'd turned off the faucet. I thought of the line I'd typed into my spreadsheet last night, extraction plan. It sounded clinical, but it was really survival in Excel form. I opened my laptop again. Phase 2. 2 years ago, their credit score was so bad they couldn't renew their home insurance. I had stepped in, just for now, Mom said, and made myself the emergency contact on their policy. Now, I logged back in. Policy portal, settings, contacts. Remove myself. Click, save. The confirmation banner popped up in green. You have successfully removed your name. For the first time, that shade of green felt like peace. By Monday, the real fallout started. A call from Dad, voice tight and tired. Could have given us a heads up, Sandy. The internet, the mortgage, all of it. That's not how family treats each other. I didn't answer, but his message kept playing in my head on loop. That's not how family treats each other. I whispered back into the empty office. You're right. Family shouldn't need a receipt to remember you exist. Then I hit send on the draft email to Cheryl. That night, Evan came over with takeout and a soft look that said he already sensed the storm brewing. Your phone's been blowing up, he said, unpacking the food. I shrugged. I'm on silent mode, emotionally and literally. He smiled, sat beside me on the couch. Whatever it is, you've got that look. What look? The spreadsheet look, the I'm done being the nice one look. I laughed quietly. You're not wrong. He hesitated. Is this about your family? Yeah, it's years overdue. Evan didn't press. He just nodded. That's what I loved about him. He didn't treat my silence like a problem to fix. He'd dated a woman once, Talia, the type who needed drama to breathe. He once told me, after her, calm feels like luxury. Calm. That's what I was building. After dinner, he left for work, night shift at the hospital, and I went back to my desk. I opened the family group chat out of morbid curiosity. Mom, can someone call Comcast? It says account holder has to verify. Emily. Ugh, Sandy set it up in her name again? Dad. Leave her out of this. I'll handle it. That was the first time I'd seen Dad defend me in text form. Too bad it was 10 years too late. Still, I smiled. A small, dangerous smile. Maybe they were starting to realize the quiet wasn't just Wi-Fi outage. It was a system failure they caused. By Wednesday, the silence turned to static. Emily again. Kind of rude to ignore everyone, TBH. I'm your sister. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a photo of my office at 11:47 p.m., laptop open, the light spilling gold on the floor, and posted it to my story with the caption, Self-made isn't as cute, but it's stable. No tags, no names, but 4 minutes later, I saw Mom viewed it. No comment, not even a lowercase nice. That silence, it felt like music. Friday night, I got an email from Westbridge Lending confirming my removal from their contact list. Future correspondence will be directed to the primary homeowner, Mr. Alan Lacey. Alan, my father. Reading that, I realized something simple and brutal. I had been the homeowner without ever owning a home. I closed the email, leaned back, and whispered to the ceiling, "Not anymore." Saturday morning came with rain. I walked to the window, watched the drops streak down the glass like thin trails of release. For years, I thought forgiveness meant pretending it didn't hurt. Now I understood. Sometimes forgiveness is just letting the call go to voicemail. I brewed coffee, opened my spreadsheet again, and in the final cell under extraction plan, I typed, Phase 3, wait. Because the thing about cutting off a current, you don't have to chase the blackout. It finds them. It took exactly 6 days for the silence to turn into footsteps. Saturday morning, 10:17 a.m., I was at the office sorting invoices when the security camera pinged. There they were, Mom and Dad, standing outside the glass door of my building like they'd accidentally wandered into the wrong part of town. Mom wore a floral dress too bright for the gray weather, clutching her purse like a peace treaty. Dad had on his weekend casual jacket, the one he always wore when he wanted to look calm but was about to negotiate something. I almost didn't open the door. Almost. But curiosity is its own addiction. I buzzed them in. They stepped inside like they were walking into a church they hadn't attended in years. The air felt thick, old perfume, cologne, rain. Mom looked around, eyes skimming the walls, the desks, the framed certifications. "You've done well for yourself," she said softly. It was the kind of compliment people give before asking for a favor. Dad cleared his throat. Figured we should talk face to face. I said nothing. I just gestured toward the chairs across from my desk. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of my computer fan. Mom started first. "We've been going through a lot lately." I raised an eyebrow. "Lately?" Dad sighed. "Your sister's been stressed. She's trying to grow her platform, and with all the..." I cut him off, voice flat. "The mortgage payments that stopped the minute I did?" Silence. They both froze, eyes darting between each other. Mom looked down, twisting her wedding ring. Dad exhaled through his nose. "You could have told us before you canceled everything." I leaned back in my chair. "You could have told me before signing my name to a 26-month charity." That landed. The quiet after that felt like glass cracking. Mom tried the soft tone, the one she used when I was little and she wanted me to fetch something. "Honey, we didn't mean to put pressure on you. We just thought you'd want to help until things stabilized." "Stabilized?" I repeated, my voice sharper now. "I've been your stability for 2 years, Mom. You've been the earthquake." She blinked, stung. Dad spoke again, defensive this time. "We never asked for this to get ugly. We're family." I laughed under my breath, one short, broken sound. "You're right. Family doesn't have to be ugly. It just has to be convenient." I stood, walked to the file cabinet behind me, and pulled out a printed copy of my spreadsheet. Crisp, organized, devastating. I slid it across the desk like a lawyer presenting evidence. The top tab read, "Payments made, $41,850, 776 cents. Below it, emotional debt, incalculable." Dad frowned. "What is this?" "It's what you cost me," I said quietly. "Time, money, sanity. The difference between having parents and managing clients who never signed a contract." Mom reached out to touch the paper, but I stopped her hand midair. "That's my copy," I said. "Yours is in your email." She froze. Dad's jaw tightened. "We didn't realize how much you were doing," he muttered. "That's the point," I said. "You didn't care to realize." For the first time, neither of them had anything rehearsed to say. After a long silence, Mom finally whispered, "We're still your parents, Sandy. We love you." I met her eyes. "You love what I provide, and you call it love because it keeps the lights on." Dad leaned forward, desperate now. "You don't have to cut us off completely, just maybe help this month, until we sort things out." I shook my head slowly. "I'm done funding silence." He frowned. "We're still family." "Yes," I said. "And family takes care of each other, right?" They both nodded, hopeful, until I added, "So, start taking care of yourselves." The conversation ended the way old engines die, sputtering, heavy, full of smoke. They stood to leave. Mom with tears clinging to her mascara, Dad pretending he didn't see them. At the door, Mom turned back. "You've changed, Sandy." I smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, just truthfully. "No, I just stopped financing your version of me." They left without another word. After the door closed, I sat there for a while, the echo of their perfume still hanging in the air. I felt not angry, not sad, just clean. I opened my phone out of habit and saw a message waiting from Evan. "You okay? I heard thunder from your side of the city." I smiled. "It's just a weather correction." That night, I poured myself a glass of cheap red wine and walked around the office, lights low, laptop open. The spreadsheet still sat on my screen, the numbers glowing like tiny ghosts of generosity. I deleted one line, not a payment, but a note under emotional debt. It said, "Still waiting for them to say they're proud." Gone. Sometimes healing isn't about adding, it's about subtraction. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Emily. "Dad's freaking." No explanation, just 2 words. I didn't reply. I just sipped my coffee and waited. Because if Dad was freaking, that meant something important. The safety net was gone, and for the first time in decades, they were falling without me to catch them. That evening, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered, half expecting another spammer selling solar panels. "Hi, this is Jennifer from Wellsbury Mortgage. Is this Sandy Lacey?" My pulse slowed. "Speaking." "We've been trying to reach Mr. Alan Lacey. Payments have lapsed for the past 2 months. Since your name was previously associated with the account, we're notifying all contributors." I stared at the rain running down the window. 2 months. The exact time since I canceled. "Got it," I said, voice calm. "I'm not involved anymore. You'll want to talk to him directly." There was a pause, then a polite, "Understood." When I hung up, I actually smiled, the kind that starts slow and turns into laughter you don't recognize as your own. Because they hadn't told him. Mom and Emily hadn't told Dad that I stopped paying. They'd let him believe the money was still magically flowing in. And now the illusion had cracked. The next call was from Dad, exactly 3 hours later. He didn't even say hello. "Did you seriously stop paying without saying anything?" I leaned back in my chair. "I told the mortgage company." "You didn't tell me." "No," I said. "Because for the past 2 years, you didn't treat me like someone worth communicating with, just someone you could invoice emotionally." Silence. Then, "You could have warned us." I let that hang. "So you could guilt me into 1 more month? Hope I'd cave again because Emily's sad and Mom's manifesting better energy?" He didn't answer. "Dad," I said finally, "you always said I figure things out. Maybe it's your turn." Then I ended the call. Later that night, I got a LinkedIn notification. "Alan Lacey viewed your profile." I nearly choked on my tea. Then, like clockwork, a text from Mom. "We're trying to refinance, but your name is still tied to the credit file. Can we use you just 1 more time? Promise this is the last." That word again. Promise. The same one Dad used when he said, "You won't even feel it." The same one Mom used when she borrowed my emergency savings for Emily's dental work. The same one Emily used when she said she'd return the laptop I gave her after college. Promises that expired faster than milk. I didn't reply. Instead, I updated my profile picture. Me at my desk, hair tied up, light from the window catching the silver lettering behind me. Sandy Lacey, CEO. Within an hour, Emily messaged me again. "Can you just sign one thing? You're being petty. This affects all of us." And that was the moment it clicked. They finally got it. I wasn't a line to sign anymore. I was the one holding the pen. It took exactly 3 weeks for the facade to collapse. The morning started like any other. Coffee, inbox, rain tapping against the glass. Until I noticed my family group chat lighting up like an alarm system. Blurred previews filled the screen. "Dad, you knew, didn't you?" "Mom, why would you let it go this far?" Emily. "They're saying foreclosure? Fix this, Sandy. Fix this." Even now, the reflex lived in their fingertips. I didn't open it. I just stared at the screen, then turned the phone face down. I'd spent a lifetime fixing things I didn't break. That job was officially retired. At noon, Evan dropped by my office between shifts, hair damp from the rain. He glanced at my silent phone. "Still going?" "They're panicking." He handed me a latte. "You sound calm." "I am." He raised an eyebrow. "That's the scariest kind of calm." I smiled faintly. They thought I was a faucet they could turn whenever the bills piled up. Now they're realizing it was a person. He nodded, quiet for a while, then said something I didn't expect. "You know, it's okay if part of you still feels guilty." I looked at him, surprised. "Because guilt doesn't mean you did something wrong," he continued softly. "It just means you care. You're allowed to care, just not at your own expense." The words hit like warm light. I didn't answer, just reached for his hand. That night, I finally opened the group chat. A wall of text flooded the screen. Dad, they've already sent notices. Mom, if we lose the house, do you know what that does to our credit? Emily, you're destroying us because you want attention. There it was, the magic word, attention. As if years of invisibility could be undone with a spreadsheet and some Wi-Fi bills. I typed one message back. I stopped paying because I'm done being erased. You can call it selfish if it helps you sleep, but I call it overdue. Then I muted the chat. 2 days later, I received a formal notice in the mail from the bank. Final demand before legal proceedings. I read it twice, then filed it neatly into a blue folder labeled Lacey Residence. Strange how something that once felt like obligation now just looked like paperwork. That evening, I went for a walk. The city smelled of wet asphalt and new beginnings. I passed a realtor's office with photos of houses in glossy frames, happy couples smiling under captions like, "You're forever home." I thought about how my parents had turned theirs into my prison, and how freeing it felt to finally walk past the bars. The next morning, Mom called again. This time I picked up. "Sandy, listen," she said quickly, voice cracking. "We're meeting with a loan officer today. They said if we can get a cosigner, they can refinance before things get worse." I didn't respond. "Sandy, I heard you. Please, it's just a signature. You don't even have to pay anything this time." "Mom," I said quietly, "that's exactly what you said last time." Silence. Then, the tremor in her voice. "Do you really want us to lose our home?" "No," I said, but I also didn't want to lose my self-respect for 2 years. Later that afternoon, a text from Emily lit up my phone again. "You're being dramatic. It's just paperwork. You've always overreacted." I stared at her message and felt something shift. Not anger, not sadness, just detachment. The kind of detachment that feels like peace after years of static. I typed back, "You're right. It's just paperwork. That's why you can sign it yourselves." Then I blocked her number. That evening, Evan and I had dinner together. A small Italian place with string lights and mismatched chairs. I told him about the foreclosure notice, the refinance request, the endless texts. He listened quietly, twirling his fork, then said, "You've done enough. It's okay to let things fall." I smiled faintly. "I think they need to." He reached across the table, his thumb brushing over my wrist. "And when they do, you'll still be standing." 3 days later, Mom left a voicemail, the kind layered with guilt and tears. "Sandy, we've always supported you too, you know. We did our best. Please don't shut us out." I played it twice. "Supported me," she'd said. Supported me how? By borrowing my savings, handing my laptop to Emily, tagging me in inspirational quotes about gratitude. Support, in our house, was just another word for extraction. I archived the voicemail and exhaled slowly. That night, I got another LinkedIn notification. "Alan Lacey viewed your profile again." It made me laugh this time. The same man who told me, "Don't overthink it, it's just paperwork," was now refreshing my resume like it held a rescue plan. Minutes later, a text arrived. "Mom, please, Sandy, just one more signature, no drama." That phrase again, no drama. Funny how the people who cause chaos always beg for peace once you stop cleaning it up. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my spreadsheet one last time. I scrolled to the bottom and added one final line under Extraction Plan. Phase 4. Let it fall. Then I closed the file. When I walked into the office the next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds in pale gold stripes. I looked at the frosted glass, Sandy Lacey, CEO, and realized something simple. They could lose their house. They could lose their comfort. But I had finally gained mine. I poured a coffee, sat at my desk, and opened a new document titled Company Expansion Proposal. Office number 2. Because while my family's house was sinking, mine was finally being built. 3 weeks later, I was standing under a clean white awning in a city 40 miles away from where my parents' house was being appraised for foreclosure. This one had better air, better light, and a new brass plaque that read, Lacey Tech Consulting, Office 2. I never planned to expand this soon, but sometimes when one door closes, literally, when you change the locks, another opens, and it has your name spelled right. There were cupcakes, a few clients, some colleagues, a small, local journalist from the Daily Beacon with a camera. Nothing fancy, just enough to feel real. When the red ribbon stretched across the doorway, I held the scissors steady. A few years ago, I couldn't even hold a conversation with my parents without shaking. Now, the blades didn't tremble at all. Click. The ribbon fell and everyone clapped. Someone from the crowd called, "Speech." I smiled, awkward but sincere. "I don't have a long one," I said. "Just this. I used to think success was something you earned to make people proud. Now I think it's something you build so you can breathe." They laughed softly, not knowing how literal that was. After the guests left, I stayed behind. The office was quiet again. New paint, soft hum of air conditioning, the faint smell of lemon polish. I walked to the window, coffee in hand, and caught my reflection in the glass. Sandy Lacey, CEO. The letters gleamed like closure. Around 4 p.m., I went out to grab lunch. When I stepped back onto the street, I froze. Across the road, under another awning, stood Mom and Dad. No camera this time. No smiles. Just two people who looked like they'd aged 10 years in 1 month. Dad was talking to a man in a Navy suit, probably a bank officer. Mom's eyes were red. I couldn't hear them, but I saw it. Dad's jaw clenching, Mom's hands wringing, the suit's polite, practiced nod. I don't think they saw me. I could have walked over, could have offered to help, but I didn't, because help isn't kindness when it costs you your peace. I stood there for a few seconds, long enough to memorize the scene. Then I turned, walked the other direction, and never looked back. That night, after dinner with my small team, I scrolled through my notifications. The local article was already up. Tech consultant expands firm, fully self-funded. Underneath the photo, the caption read, "Founder Sandy Lacey marks new chapter of independence and growth." It made me laugh. Independence and growth sounded like corporate fluff, but it was the truest thing anyone had ever written about me. At home, I checked my messages one last time. Emily had posted a vague story. "Some people only love you when you're useful. Family is family." I didn't reply, didn't even screenshot it, because now her words weren't bait. They were background noise. I poured a glass of wine, sat by the window, and let the city's hum replace the silence my family used to fill. My phone buzzed, a text from Evan. "Proud of you. Ribbon looked good on you, by the way." I smiled. "Thanks. I think I finally cut the right one." He sent a heart emoji. Before going to bed, I opened my old spreadsheet one last time. The tabs look smaller now, harmless. Payments, collateral impact, emotional debt, extraction plan. At the bottom of the last tab, I added one final line. Phase 5, closure achieved. Then I saved it and closed the file for good. A week later, a former neighbor messaged me a photo, my parents' house, the for sale sign. The caption, "Did you know?" I typed back, "Yeah, it was time." And for once, it didn't hurt. Months passed. The holidays came. My inbox filled with client emails, not guilt trips. I still thought about them sometimes, about the kid version of me hanging her test scores on the fridge, hoping someone would notice before they got covered by Emily's drawings. I think of her now and whisper, "You made it." Not because I have more money or offices or independence, but because I finally have peace. People sometimes ask, "Do you still talk to your family?" I smile, take a sip of coffee, and answer honestly. We used to share a mortgage, that's all.